We're calling this video, should I stay or should I go? This is one of the most common questions that comes up at the start of a coaching relationship. It's a question that's often asked from a place of like wit's end or desperation. It's often asked from a survival brain state. How can we tell, Nathan, what does survival brain look like in this situation?
Right. You can tell you're in the survival brain state because, to begin with, your body tells you so. Maybe you have heat flush in your face, maybe your armpits are sweaty, maybe your heart is racing, or maybe you can't get off the couch, alternatively. You also tend to be thinking in the extreme. Make the other person change, or you're gonna leave. That's a fight or flight reaction. Or something like, don't rock the boat and hope an act of God changes the relationship. That would be a freeze or appease reaction. Why can't we trust this brain state for this decision, Natalie?
This is a brain state you can rely on to make a survival decision. So it's like decides whether to jump from the window or stay in the burning building, or leap from the car of the kidnapper, or wrestle the steering wheel away. It's really only considering to live or to die. It does not consider our values, our goals, the big picture, the nuances, logic, that sort of thing. And unfortunately, when we act from this state, the results often work against us. For example, we're desperate for connection and so upset that we're not getting it that we bolt, right? That's flight. So now we're alone and we're even further from the opportunity for connection. So what do we do, Nathan?
Well, the first thing is to recognize that this reaction actually means something. But then we need to get into an executive brain state to know what that is. So the first order of operations is actually to meet the needs of the body. Whether it's a little bit of food or a little bit of water, or maintaining or making sure that you're tending to your immediate safety. Maybe it's put a blanket on if you're feeling cold, or some slippers or something. And then after we do that, after we tend to that physical safety, then we have access to the emotional brain. But would you say that's enough of a neurochemical change, Natalie? Or should we decide to stay or go from an emotional brain state?
No. You're going to want to hold off on that decision just yet, because this next brain state, the emotional brain state, it's not a decision maker. Its aim is to bring awareness to emotion and then connect with it. So from this brain state, decisions will not come readily. Instead, you'll find yourself telling the story of your situation to every friend that wants to hear about it. You'll journal about it. You'll go round and round. That's just it's normal, it's natural, it's what that brain state does. That's just your system trying to integrate the feelings you have about this decision or this situation. So what would you recommend, Nathan, for moving out of this emotional brain state and into the executive and decision-making state?
Great question. From this brain state, we want to begin by noticing that we have an emotion in this area. Then we want to try and name those emotions the best that we can. Then finding ways to connect with ourselves around those emotions. We use the mnemonic device notice, name, touch to help remember this process. And through this process, we can soothe the emotional brain, and that allows us to shift processing finally to the executive brain. So, Natalie, what would you say are the key signs that your brain chemistry has changed and that you're ready to check in on that decision to stay or go?
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so you'll find yourself musing on other random topics without realizing. You're no longer dwelling, you're like thinking about something random. You're actually like face is lifted and you're looking up and around. You're not face down on a pillow crying or like hiding your face. That's one of my cues. You have an idea, right? This is the idea brain state. So you have an idea even for what to do in the next moment. So you might find yourself like, I really want a ham sandwich. I'm going to make one. You just have an idea for what your next step is. And you also start seeing a bigger picture beyond this particular situation, right? So you maybe recognize that you've been in this situation before. This is kind of like a pattern that you find yourself in. or you have a sense of what your future self would decide for you or would want for you. So what then? How do we then get the clarity we need now that we're in the thinking and decision-making part of the brain?
Yes, now what? So now you want to start asking yourself some helpful questions. Now that you have access back to your executive brain, you want to start investigating this situation that you're in. So you might begin by asking yourself, what are my needs in this situation? And are they being met? And maybe even how can I meet some of those for myself? Then you might ask yourself something like, what values am I living into, whether I stay or whether I go? And then which of these values is my top priority, at least at this stage of life? And then things like, if I stay, how do I want to design it? Or if I go, how do I want to help myself during this transition? What kind of logistics can I start to take a look at? Would you agree?
Oh yeah, it's a totally different approach. It's not black and white. It's not do it or else. It's one that's measured and it's based in your needs and your values and your preferences rather than your fear or your anger. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And here's a prompt for you. Is this process something we teach in our upcoming neuroemotional coach training?
You better believe it. Our training starts January 11th, and we're actually filling spots now.
There's a link in our bio if you want to check it out. But otherwise, we really hope that this helps you make whatever decision that you're facing now.
Be well.